So for those who don't know me, I'm Claire Jenks. I do get confused on social because Claire Harding between maiden and married name. Call me either. Everyone knows me as Jenks most of the time. I'm a graphic designer. Been working for 9 years now by myself, throwing myself into business. And currently I help small businesses through to large membership sites, get my teeth in before I start, to help them create visually standout content to help them get more fans and followers and ultimately more business in the end. And one of the tools that's used for some of the small business I work with is Canva. So it's a very well asked after tool to know about. So hopefully I'll be able to give you a bit of value and a bit of insight today. I know there'll be people at the start of their journey of Canva, some people further in. Like I say, feel free to ask questions at any point, and Link will give me the nod. There's a few sections for asking questions, but yeah, feel free to chat. I want it to be as interactive and to get what you want out of it, more importantly than me just talking at you. So if I should start sharing my screen, we'll dive on in. We will go for this one here.
Let's do this.
There we go. You should be able to see my screen. It's there and live. So yes, this is me, and so today we're going to be talking all about Canva, and from a designer's point of view. There's lots of different courses and things out there, so this is just my take from a designer's point of view. So as I say, be interactive, get questions, get comments going in the chat link. I'll keep an eye. I say I don't want to just talk at you, I want to be able to give you that value. There's the chance to ask questions. I'll start off with a bit of an intro to Canva, a few design tips along the way, and then at the end, after that section, we'll dive straight into Canva, and anything that you're unsure of, any questions or anything you've tried or you'd like to try that you're not quite sure on how to do, feel free to ask and I can jump in live and hopefully answer some of those questions for you. So it's going to be a mixture of presentation and a live demo. So I should say as interactive and as fun as possible. So to start with, I thought it'd be good to give you an idea of what visual branding is. So Canva is a great tool and there's so many different tools like this out there, but I think it's good to have a bit of an understanding about why you're going to go and use these tools and what you're wanting to get out of them. So visual branding is all of the visual elements that convey your brand's messaging. So this covers your logo, your fonts, your images, whether they be stock photography, bespoke photography, illustrations, icons, your fonts as well. So all these different visual aspects and elements are what brings together your visual brand. And more often than not, this is a really important part of your brand because it's where people recognize you, and that's where you'll build your brand awareness. So I think it's good to know all these different elements that come into using Canva. It's so easy to just dive straight into Canva and get all excited about everything that's going on. So I always like to explain what visual branding is before we dive on in. And why is it important? So it builds your brand awareness and your brand recognition. So I know so many new small businesses now that have really got their visual brand on point. So whatever graphics they're using, especially on social media, I can spot them from nowhere. So I'll be scrolling through LinkedIn and I'll be able to spot exactly who it is, which means I'll immediately jump in and engage. And the more you do it, the more consistent you are, the more you'll build up that brand awareness and recognition. It helps you to look professional and trusted. So you'll see the differences between someone who's tried to pull something together, not quite sure. They've used one style one week, one style the next week. You're not quite sure what they're trying to tell you, what their messaging is. And more often than not, you'll just scroll straight past. So pulling together some really standout visuals that are all on brand and consistent helps you look professional and is trusted to your audience, which in turn builds that customer love and loyalty as well. Again, people start to recognize you. They love the way things look. They love the way that you're presenting it. alongside that becomes that love and loyalty. Think of any big brand. As soon as you see things, you'll start engaging with something you recognize. As you say, it helps you stand out. Going back to some of those other small businesses that I noticed on social media, they just stand out for all the right reasons, I've got to say. But you notice them, and then you'll want to jump in, and that's ideally what you want from the social media visual side of things. You want people to recognize you and start engaging with you, and in turn that helps increase your customers, which is more often than not the end goal for a lot of businesses. And that could be for your own business, or if you're doing the social media managing and creation for other clients, that's the end goal for them as well. So there's different sides to it. So all in all your visual branding is the visibility and the brand awareness, and that's the reason why you want to start creating these standout visuals. So it's just good to know, have that understanding of why you're going to be creating these graphics, and it's not just for creating pretty pictures. Well, you can create pretty pictures, but if they help the visibility as well. So a little bit of science as well to get started. So 65% of us are visual learners, which I think this is important to bring in, because again, it's a reason why you want to be creating these standout graphics. So if you're wanting to reach more people and get more people to engage with you, whether that be online or offline, you want to start including visuals, or thinking about the sort of visuals that you might include in your marketing. So the 65% of us, if you're not using any images at all, or kind of half-hearted images, then by creating more images, you're suddenly going to increase your reach and your engagement just by including those visuals. Oh, too fast. And visuals are 80% more memorable than text. So again, if you're scrolling through social media, for example, everything's just text and that image stands out, people are going to remember that. If you ask people to recall something from their day, more often than not, it's a visual thing that they'll recall rather than a text-based thing. I'm a visual, and if you give me a blog post that's just thousands of words, I'll switch off and I won't be able to read it. But if there's images there that have broken it up, or in a visual way to explain it, you've got my attention. So then again, you're using visuals to, again, get that bigger reach and that bigger engagement, which is part of the point of it. So I actually recognize people by, well, when we used to go networking and we used to have business cards, I recognize people by the color of their business card or their logo, and that's the visual aspect of it. So I'll quite often go to other network people and I'm like, yeah, you're the one with the blue logo that looks like this. And it's because we remember visuals more than the text. I couldn't tell you what their phone number was or their email address or anything like that, but their visual side I would remember. I've got to drink tea at the same time, don't I? And to put all of that into a case study before we dive on in, I like to give a bit of background before we dive into the tool itself. This is a lady called Tiana Wilson Bays. She is a productivity coach and helps a lot of small businesses with their productivity to help them increase their revenue and their sales and things like that. Now, she is an avid blogger and she's been blogging for years. And she came to me because she had kind of hit a plateau with her reach and engagement. And she's like, I'm writing all the same things, posting at exactly the same time, but I just need to stand out a little bit more. So we took a little bit look at her blog, seeing what was going on, and this image on the left is how her blog was before. And she'll openly admit, she was just typing in a random keyword that might suit her blog and choosing the first image that popped up. Very tenuous links, some of them didn't quite represent what the blog was about. So we said, let's have a look and see if we can start to build a bit of a brand template for you so that you can use this on your blog. So when you're sharing them on LinkedIn, was her platform. When you're sharing them on LinkedIn, people will recognize your content more than they would before. Before it was just kind of in the scroll, no one was really noticing it. So we went to Canva and we started to create some templates. So she already had a logo created. She already had brand colours. So we used them as a basis. We didn't change anything else because she's got the basis there. So we created some blog templates for us, a few different ones so that it didn't become stale. And we started to put these on all the future blogs going forward. And these were just purely the feature image. So whenever she put the link on LinkedIn, the image would appear. And she's very into her data, so she analysed everything. And she didn't change any of the style of writing. She didn't change any of the times that she was posting. All was exactly the same. And the only thing that she changed was the images. And on the right are these new templates that were all created in Canva. She can go in and change the text, change the image, but the template is set there for her. And the views alone increased by 370%, which was pretty huge. We were actually a bit shocked. We had to check a few times. And that was purely the visuals and in Canva. So as a good case study of why you should be using visuals and think about them, put a little bit of thought into them, I think that was a pretty good case study to use. And she's still been doing this onwards since we did this case study, and she's still getting the increased views now, so it wasn't just a once-off. So whenever I give people that case study, they often say to me, well, this is going to cost thousands of pounds. She had you as a designer, so she's got a helping hand, or it's going to take hours of my time to try and create something like that. And it's not. Yes, she had me on side, but she didn't need me. I kind of gave her the steer in the right way. We've got templates in Canva and she can now go off and change them. She doesn't need me at all. I just pointed out the fact that it would be a good idea for her to do it. So it's not going to cost thousands, and it's not going to cost hours of your time either. And this is where Canva comes into it. Now, I'd normally ask for a hands up here, but we can't really do a hands up. So if you want to let me know in the chat whether you're new to Canva, whether you've advanced, whether you've used it a lot, and what sort of things you create with it if you're using it already. So that'll give me a good idea of where you're at and the sorts of things that you're creating already. So I'll have a sip of tea and I'll give you a few minutes to, if anyone's
I'll start before we get any comments. I love Canva, absolutely in love with it. So similar to your case study, when I got my new branding for myself and for Cambridge social media, I worked with a designer who gave me all the elements, helped me set up a couple of templates in Canva, set up all the branding in Canva and fonts and everything. And out of nowhere, I can easily create all the social media graphics that I need. I can play around with it, can change the text, I can move around things quickly. But for all the social media purposes, from updating the social media banners, covers, to individual posts, to blog posts, everything looks on brand and everything is super easy and quick. And that's just one way to use it. I'm doing a little bit of talking, public speaking, training the way you do. So using Canva to design all my presentations, and now being able to publish straight away and present from there, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, that's it.
Comments. So Jackie says she has an account and had a double but can't really figure it out. She has some basic templates done but haven't really used them effectively. Sarah says she loves Canva and often uses it if she just wants to find a great image. We have Sangeeta, who says never used it before but heard lots of people raving about it. Rahel says quite new at it. I've played around with it a bit but haven't started using it for any content yet. Again, more recently started using Canva. Farah says for meetup promotion, images for Twitter and LinkedIn, but they don't have consistency or a style yet. So really good point with your branding earlier. Rosie says that she's been using it for free for a while, and she just signed up for the pro and just starting to play out with the pro version, creating logo and some pieces for clients with some basic templates. And Sophie says that she's using Canva for social media graphics. She's quite new to it, but loves it already. So I think we have a nice scale of all the from pretty much signed up to people dabbling in the pro features as well.
Oh, perfect. So hopefully I'll be able to give you a bit of insight into, I'm going to touch on the free and a bit of the pro. And like I say, give you some design tips so you can take these templates and make them your own. So hopefully I'll be able to cover everything there. So that's good. And as you say about the presentation, Lenka, this is all done. My presentation today is all in Canva. I'm currently presenting live from Canva. So just to give you an idea of kind of how powerful it is and where it's come over the last few years. And I've also, at the end, given you a bit of an insight into some of the new features that have just been released over the last few weeks. So that should hopefully give you kind of see where things are going with it. So it's a powerful tool.
Super.
So perfect. Like I said, it gives me a good idea to see where people are at. So yeah, so Canva is let's jump back a bit, is an all-in-one design tool. So it's created for non-designers, people who have got no design experience whatsoever. It's created to make sure that it's really easy for you to be able to create things on the fly for consistency going forward, but you don't need a designer. If you have, it's even better. Like I say, Gianna had me, but then she could take it on and use it herself. The same with Lenka there. So it's designed for a non-designers to create beautiful graphics for whatever you want. So it has digital aspects in there from social media, all the social media platforms. There's now Zoom backgrounds with everything that's been going on. You can now create your own Zoom backgrounds, presentations, PDFs, flyers, you name it. There's so much in there. And I'll jump in and scroll through all the different options for you in a second. So as some people have mentioned, some people may not be aware, some people may, there's two different versions of Canva. There's the free version and the pro version. So I just wanted to let people know what the difference was between the two. Some people are quite happy on the free and it does so much already. There's a few extra things in the pro which we may push you over the edge into the pro today. But they're both just as powerful as each other. You can start with the free and move to the pro. It depends on how much you're using it and what you're using it for. So I have highlighted some of the things that I love about both sides. So the free, this is everything you get in the free version. In pro, you get everything free and all these extras. And at the minute, it's around $10.99 a month, give or take. But the free, like I say, you can do so much with it. Don't think that you have to be paying for it to get the most out of it. You really don't. Some of the good sides of the free is that you can create designs with custom dimensions. So if you've got a blog, for example, that has a funny header size that they don't have in Canva themselves, you can start to create custom dimension images. You can upload your own images. So if you've got your own bespoke photography for your business or your clients' businesses, you can upload them. The free version will let you, which I think is a great option for the free. You're not stuck to just using the stock photography that's available. And you can create and publish directly to your social channels using the free. So if you're creating a tweet, for example, and you've got a picture that you want to create with it, you can literally publish it straight from creating it, which again, for a free tool, I think that's quite a good offer. The pro has a few extra bits. So you can have a brand kit in the pro, which I'll show you in the next section what that is and why that is a great help. You can resize your designs with one click. So if you're creating multiple different images, so one for Instagram, you need the same for Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, you name it. They're all different sizes because they have to make it complicated, obviously. You can resize your design with one click. So you simply choose what you want to resize and it does it magically, which saves so much time. So if you are creating a lot of content for lots of different platforms, that would sell me to the pro, and that's why I have it. You get extra images and graphics, music and videos in the pro. So again, you've got more choice, but if you're using your own images, you've got the free version there. you can start to upload your own fonts and logos, which again, I'll come to when we talk about the brand kit. But uploading your own fonts means that you can get everything on brand, and you're not having to use if you've already got your logos chosen for you for your brand, you're not having to choose one that's close to it within Canva. There's a lot of fonts on offer, but if you want to use a particular font, this is a great option too. It just means everything's consistent. And I'm a little bit OCD, so if one font was slightly wrong, I would be able to spot it a mile off with my own stuff. You can download transparent images, which helps for a lot of different things, which also ties into the background remover, which was a newish feature that's been around for a few months now. So one of the feedback from a lot of people was that they wanted to be able to upload an image and remove the background so that they could use a picture of themselves on Instagram with a plain background, or take a picture of themselves, let's say remove the back so that it's not messy like the rest of my office. So that's available in the Pro. So that was a well asked for feature. You can export all the GIFs and MP4s. So now in Canva, you can do animation and video. So if you're doing a lot of them, then the Pro is a good way to go. And with the free, you can create and publish, but with Pro, you can create and schedule. So if you're going to be scheduling a lot of your posts to go out, and one of the new features that I'll talk about at the end is the content calendar that they've just released as well. So you can actually see your full content for the months to come. You can create and schedule directly to your social channels. So if you're creating lots of graphics, again, the Pro's a good feature to go for that one. So just a bit of an insight into the difference between the two. Like I say, the free is super powerful. So if you're just starting out, just go with the free and see how you get on. There is a free trial for both that they offer, so feel free to go in and dabble, which I love that word that was used. Was it Jackie? Dabble. So we'll dive in to a few of the tips then around Canva. So I think there is 13 tips in total that I've pulled together, just so you can see how I'm progressing along. So as I say right at the start of this, we want to get an understanding of visual branding and why we're creating these images and what the impact of it's going to be. We're going to put this time into it, not hours, but a bit of time into it. So now we understand how that fits into the wider picture of our marketing or brand. We now want to think about what content are you creating, what sort of graphics are you wanting to create? And a lot of the time, visuals upgrade content. So if we're talking about digital content, we've got our blog posts that I've talked about before. We can upgrade it with a nice feature image, inside images, social media posts. We can quite simply use a text post, but we want to upgrade that with a nice visual to go alongside it. So there's lots of different ways that I always think about it as an upgrade with a visual, because it adds that layer on. So you want to think about what sort of content you're creating that you can upgrade. And that could be a number of things, but I think it's good to have an idea of what it is that you want to get out of using Canva. It is a minefield, it's a rabbit hole. There's so much going on. It's really exciting once you get in. There's lots of things, but you want to have an idea so that you don't waste all those hours going in and trying lots of different things. And you also want to remember how your target audience consumes that content. So have a plan of what you want to create before you dive in. I'm just warning you so that you can save hours of time of going down the rabbit hole. It's kind of like YouTube and Netflix. Once you start on one thing, you end up spending hours and thinking, where's all my time gone? But if you want to create graphics efficiently that are consistent, have a bit of a plan, know what you're wanting to create before you dive on in. And think outside of the quote box. So this is one of the reasons I asked what people were creating at the minute. So one of the first things that people often jump in to create is the Instagram quotes, which are really simple to create. There's so many different templates within Canva itself. And this is the first thing that people ever think of. And a lot of the people who start and not quite sure where to go, that's all they'll ever create, which is absolutely fine. But there's so much more that you can create. So think outside of that, little quotes on Instagram, and see what else you can start creating. And this is just a very, very small list of some of the things that you can create. So you've got social media graphics, blog graphics, checklists, infographics, webinar slides, presentation backgrounds, Zoom backgrounds, as we now have, ebooks, templates, email newsletter graphics. There's so much. So think about the wider of what you're trying to achieve, what you'd love to do, what you'd love to upgrade. I have people who again, we'll go back to the blog example, who want to upgrade with a lead magnet. So they'll come into Canva and create lead magnets and downloadables in here. So it doesn't just stop at the social media graphics, although that's the most commonly used example of Canva. So these are just a few ideas of what else you can think about. So have a think about what you're currently doing in your business, what you're wanting to create, and some of these things you might be able to create using Canva. Before I go on to tip 2, I just wanted to show you, hopefully you can see Canva there in front of you. So like I say, this is why you have a plan before you jump into Canva, because there's so much going on and there's so much being added to it straight away, all the time, sorry. So as you scroll through, you've got social media, with all the different things that you can create. The lists go on and on. Events, posters, brochures, marketing. Again, we've got adverts, flyers, logos. There's so much in here. So when you first come into Canva, it can look quite overwhelming because you're kind of like, where do I start? There's all this pretty stuff that's going on. Which is why I say have a bit of a plan, know what you want to create. If it's social media, jump into the social media section, because it is a rabbit hole. You'll get lost for hours and hours, which is great if you get some good stuff, but you can get lost. But just to give you an idea of all this stuff, if you've not been into Canva before, there's so much stuff, and it all looks so good. It's like tempting. And I will warn you, half my I think actually most of my presentation has food related to it. I don't know why that is, but I always think this is a bit of a candy shop. There's so much going on. So, excuse me, have a bit of a plan before you dive on in. So we go on to tip 2. A little swig. So create a brand toolkit. So this is one of the things that I pointed out of the Pro version. You don't have to have Pro to create this. It does help. So before you jump into, so we now know what we want to create and we now know why we're creating it. We need to now look at how we're going to bring those elements into Canva itself. So you want to start creating a brand toolkit. Now, as I say, this comes back to the visual branding elements. So it's your colors, your fonts, icons, photography, logos, any illustrations, any different visual elements that you use to communicate what you want to with your brand. And a brand toolkit's great because it helps you narrow down what you're going to do. So again, you can jump into Canva and there's all these different colors and things, but if you can just think about your brand, it helps you just narrow down, and that's where the consistency and the on brand's going to come from. So you want to build this before you dive in. That tends to be the ideal case. If you haven't, that's absolutely fine. Some people will get designers to help them with this. Some people have this already without knowing it, but it's always good to bring this into one folder on your computer or your laptop. That's how I always say, so you can use those elements all the time. And you're not going to get distracted by any other things, because using these consistently is how you get that brand consistency and that brand awareness. And John Esperian is a very, very good example of this. So I didn't know John at all before I started noticing him on LinkedIn. If you don't know him and you want to know about LinkedIn, you need to go and speak to him, because he's the king of LinkedIn.
Well, people are lucky because we have John talking next week about how not to be a LinkedIn loser. So
amazing.
Like our next week's talk about LinkedIn.
That wasn't planned either. Look at that. He's amazing. So I would definitely go to that talk. He's absolutely brilliant. And what he doesn't know about LinkedIn isn't worth knowing. But I spotted him on LinkedIn a few years ago now. Like I say, I've never met the guy. He's a lovely guy. But I noticed him because he was so consistent with the way he was putting his content out there. and the way that he used visuals to enhance that content. So now whenever I see his images and Bitmoji, John, I know it's him straight away, and I know that he's got so much value. So the value is in the content itself, but if you can make people see it, even better. So I would see him all the time, to which point I had to ask people, who is John? I need to know who John, I need to meet him. And I was lucky enough to meet him last year at Cambridge and see him speak. So, but he's just so consistent. And that's because he has his brand toolkit. So I've actually worked this backwards from seeing all the stuff he does, but it's so consistent you can pull his brand toolkit together. So he's got his logo that he uses, he's got his brand colors that he uses, he's got his brand fonts that are always used the same, and then he's got Bitmoji John, which is the hero, and then himself as well. And you can see these are just a few different examples from LinkedIn, where his home is, of how this starts to get consistent and how powerful it is to have that consistency within your visuals. Let's say now I'll dive in. You can spot him anywhere on LinkedIn before you've even read the content, but you know, it's so jam-packed full of value that you'll then go for, and you can just see, I mean, 553 comments, that's just insane. But that just shows you how this brand toolkit gets pulled in to your graphics. And this is what it'll look like in Canva. So I'll dive in again in a second and show you how mine looks. So your brand kit in Canva is a pro version. Like you say, you don't have to have it all in Canva. It just makes it easy because it's all there in one tool. So whenever you're going into it, it's already there. Whereas you may have to upload different bits and change colors. It's a little bit more faffy if you're not on the pro version, but it can still completely possible on the free version. So if I go into here, you'll see that I've got my brand logos here that I can just simply click into different graphics that I'm using. I've got my brand fonts here, and these are my main fonts, and I've got my brand colors here. So everything's already in. You don't have to keep copying and pasting hex codes or remembering what they are. If you remember your brand colors, you're better than me. But this just makes it really easy. So this is a pro, this is the pro of it. So you get to upload all these. And as I said at the start, it allows you to upload your own brand fonts, which is just so handy because everything's already in there. As you can see, I've got lots of different brand colors in there for different clients. So if you're creating graphics on behalf of clients, you can have your own brand kit in here, but you can also upload different color palettes, which has helped when I've been working with clients. If you are creating content and graphics on behalf of people, that's also a good option as well. So just to make you aware of them. Like I say, you don't have to have the pro at all. As long as you've got all of these elements somewhere that's easy accessible that you can go to, that's how you'll start to build your consistency. And then we get into the templates. So there are so many different templates. Like I say, I'll swing back again and show you. These are all hundreds of thousands of templates, Instagram posts. You could scroll for hours and hours. There's so many, which is great. And I think it's worth, when you first dive in, to have a look and see what's there, get a feel for what's there and what might work for you. For example, there's ones that are longer quotes. We did talk about staying out the quotes, but there's a lot of quotes on here. But longer quotes and testimonials, just really simple words, 1 or 2 words. It's more photographic, can't speak today, photographic graphics. So there's loads of different ones. So I think it's worth having a look through when you first dive in and seeing kind of what might work for you. Is it something that you're going to be doing more text, more imagery? Have a look through and see what's there. Like I say, there's so many for so many different types of applications. So take a look through. But what I say is, when you choose your templates, choose a select few and stick with them. You don't have to stick with them forever. Stick with them for a few months at least. Get to know them, get to play around with them and make them work for you. You can start to like I say, try one, try another one, and before you know it, your consistency's gone again because you're trying so many different things. So choose a few that might work for you and stick with them. Give it a couple of months, and see how they work for you. If then you've got your consistency there, you could then introduce another 3, for example, and build on them. But if you've only got a few, you're not going to get lost in which one should I use, and because again, we want to be creating these efficiently and not spending hours over them. So use them alongside your brand toolkit that we've just talked about to get those standout visuals. And choose the ones that might best reflect your brand. So as I say, if you're going to be doing a lot of text heavy visuals, for example, choose templates that are already set up for that, because it's easier to work with. If you're going to be doing more photographic, have a look for the ones that are using more photographs. It just gives you a good starting point rather than trying to force something that's not set up. Again, you're trying to make it as easy as possible and try not to create too much from scratch. Even as a designer, we look at a blank canvas and we're kind of like, oh, where do we start? It's always good to have some kind of basis first. It makes it so much easier, and then you can evolve and develop them from there. And like I say, create a bank of them for ongoing consistency. So if you start with a couple and you start to use them and you've got them consistent and you're really pleased with them, and you think, oh, actually we need a few more for different applications, for example, you might start by going onto a different social media channel, or like I said, there's so many different options on Canva. Just keep creating that bank of them and try and stick to them, because it does get very rabbit holey. I spent hours looking for different things. So start create that bank that you can go to. So if you need to create something quick on the fly, you've got that template and that bank that you can go to. You've got your brand toolkit, and you can create something quickly in an instant. Because I'm aware a lot of the time things aren't planned out weeks and months at a time. It's going, oh, I need something for Instagram, I need a post for today, I've not posted. So you want to be able to do it quickly. So just a few tips of how you use the templates.
While we're on the brand kit,
yeah,
Raphael is asking if you can share brand kits with a team. There are different ways of sharing on Canva. Could you touch on that, please?
Yes, you can. So that will be in the pro version that you can share. So let me find where Canva's disappeared. I knew this would happen. There we go. Trying to hide it there. So you can start to add people within your team so that they can access things. It does, I think, don't quote me on it, increase the price though. That's the only downside of it. So as you can see, there's a team, I've got a team here that's currently no one's assigned to. But once they're in the team, they'll have the full brand kit here. So as you need to add them into your team to be able to share that brand kit, if you're going to be sharing within Canva. That's the easiest way and cleanest way of doing it. As I say, it's trying to find where within account settings you can add people into your team to be able to share that brand kit so that they can use it across. And it is a great tool if you are using a team, because everything's there in one place and you can use the same templates and, like you say, the same brand kit. So it is a big bonus of it, again, for that consistency, because from my point of view, or from my experience, it's trying to find out what exactly is that blue. Is it this? No, it's a bit more green than that. And it's trying to find it with using like a pointer and a paint clicker, and it doesn't quite work. So for that, like, precise consistency, sharing the brand kit within your team is a really good option. Like I say, you can do it by creating a team within Canva with the pro version, if that helps.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, so like I say, using the toolkit and the templates, a select few of them is a great way to start using Canva. And using them two together is the way you get these standout on-brand visuals. So before you dive in, know what you're wanting to create, get your toolkit together. It doesn't have to be an overcomplicated toolkit either. It just, if you've got brand colors, that's enough to get started. You don't have to have everything. And mine's very, very simple. It's pictures of me, my logo, and those colors, and that's it. So don't think it has to be overcomplicated, and don't think you have to have it before you dive in, it just helps keep you on a straight and narrow path. And so one of the things that, so I've included some of the questions that have been asked along the way. And one of the things is that people will find templates that they love, but they don't want to pay for it, which absolutely fine, no judgment at all. If you go into the elements of that template, it's quite often that the image is what you need to pay for. So the image will be a premium image, especially if you're on the free version. The image will be the premium option, and you'll have to buy a license for it. Sometimes they're pennies, pounds, there's various different ranges of prices. But if you like the template, you can simply delete that image and upload a free one or upload one of your own. So that's one way of just a little hack of using templates that you might like, but for some reason it's asking you to pay for it. So just a little hack there that seems to have been helpful for other people. So I just wanted to share it here too. And with so much more being added into Canva, it's happening more and more with animations and things like that and videos. So just a little tip.
Great tip. Sarah loves it.
Oh, good. I say it's a handy one. Another one is, so we're talking about just having a little bank of templates, but just because you have a couple doesn't mean that you can't use them in different ways. So turn them on their head, especially for ones like this, for example. Photographs are slightly more complicated. You don't want people upside down. But if they're more illustrative or text-based, as these ones are, flip them on their head and all of a sudden you've got two versions of one template, which for Instagram, I'm going to say Instagram because they're square, you've still got that consistency there, but they look different. So it's still going to get that engagement. You're not going to get bored of using the same template all the time. And it's just a simple tip, again, to kind of increase that bank of templates without too much effort on your part. So again, this has been used by a couple of my clients when they're just trying to keep things quite simple, keep to a restricted template bank. But again, it's less effort, and that's kind of what I want to share with you. It's not everything has to be so much effort and hours. If it takes you hours, that's when you hire someone. But this is to make it as easy for you to create some brilliant graphics.
When talking about the consistency, we have an interesting question from Taya.
Good timing, look at that.
If I'm pronouncing the name correctly. She's asking if you have any advice on using email newsletter template. Would you use the same template in every email, or would you vary the graphic?
I'd probably use the same one in every email for the email side of things, depending on how often you're sending them out too. But yeah, I would probably use the same one from my point of view. Someone from the email side may have other insights. Yeah,
I would say keep the main template, the header image the same. And if there are additional images within the email, then yes, have a play around with them. But if it's like a weekly, monthly newsletter kind of thing, it's a regular, then keeping the same design would be my advice as well.
Yeah, that's it. Because when it lands, people recognize it straight away, and they'll know to read it. If it's something different, they might miss it. So that's it, building up that awareness and that recognition, which works so well. I say it should work for John on LinkedIn. It's not just LinkedIn it works across all these things. So no, good question. Yeah. Is there any other? As soon as we've stopped at a question slide, it's as if it was meant to be.
Yeah, I know. Perfect timing. We're completely in sync today. We had a question from Tim earlier, and he said that they're just started on Instagram campaign, and he would like to hear how would you utilize Canva to create stories or posts? How many designs should they concentrate on? Should be logos used in them? And some tips on how you can really take your Instagram game with the grid and stories using Canva.
Yeah, oh no, good question. I think it's probably worth me jumping into Canva to show you them. So within Canva, they have actually got, if you can't find anything on here, you can do a quick search. There's so much in here now. So they've even got real videos in here, so they're very up to date. So for Instagram stories, you've got, again, millions and millions of templates. So again, get your brand toolkit and have a look at the sort of thing. It depends on what you're wanting to use for Instagram stories, for example. Is it going to be videos? Is it going to be pure image based? There's lots of different options in here. You can see ones that incorporate videos, different types of videos. We've got ones with animation on, just plain text. There's so many different ones. So have a look through here and see. And depending on the story, because the stories are so flexible in what you can do, I would choose a couple that you can start with and see how they work with your messaging. You can then, if you want the consistency between the story and the feed, then a lot of these templates match up with other ones. But also, if I click around, I'll go for the sale one. This is when the internet cuts out, isn't it? We'll see if it doesn't load then. But you can, if with the magic resize one, so if you were going to have the post, for example, that was part of a campaign, that then you wanted to say more in the story, you could actually make them look very similar by using the resize. And that's a really quick way of linking those two together if it's part of a bigger campaign. For example, oh, there we go, see? We'll leave it go, leave it go. Let me find you again. We'll see if that loads up. So yeah, so if it's a campaign on Instagram and you've got the feed and the stories, you can use that resize to make the posts and the stories link together with less effort. Make sure you're using your brand toolkit along both of them. And sometimes it's good to, so I often use this background that I've got on this presentation as just the consistent element. So I'll have this on my feed and then I'll put it in my stories. And it's just that one thing that people will recognize between the two. So that's in terms of kind of the consistency side of things. Like I say, there's so many different templates. So have a look and see which one might work best for your message. I've worked with people who are the retail side, but there's perfect stories for them. Ones that just do more video or events when they're promoting events like this one, for example. See what works best for you, have a bit of a play around. But again, for the stories and the feed, I'd just choose a few templates that can work between the two and make your life a lot easier. If that helps answer anything, I don't know how I've just witted there.
I think my only kind of add-on to this would be that stories are very fast-paced and you probably need to be creating quite a lot of stories. If you're following, you know, an Instagram campaign strategy, then you probably have a plan to have daily stories and you have X amount of stories to share a day, which is a lot of design to be done. And stories are often more in the moment. We're using stickers, we're using video. They're a little bit more rough around the edges. Yes, they can be designed, but what I would say is definitely for your grid posts, then having very beautiful eye-catching design, it's like super important. When it comes to stories, if you want to have brand consistency and use some graphic visual, then yes, exactly what Claire said. But at the same time, I wouldn't be too obsessive about designing things for stories because it could be very time consuming and stories are very fast-paced, fast disappearing. So you could be adding way too much work, quite unnecessary work for yourself.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that one. One of the other things I was going to say, if it is for the stories, what people, if this will go back to here, what I've often done is created, like I say, this plain background, and if I've done a video, I'll put it on, shrink the video a little bit, and do it that way. So there's a bit of something there, but it is one of those things. Unless you've got a lot of time and hours and getting paid a lot of money or getting lots of return on it, then put it into the feed, like Lenka says. I don't know why though. We'll leave it spinning. Hopefully it'll come back. Technology live. We can't help it, can we?
There is a question about a pro membership. Is there a minimum term? What are the payment terms? What options do they have?
No, you can dive in for 1 month and leave if you want. You get a slight discount if you pay for the year. So you can sign up for the year and get a slight discount. That's what I was thinking this morning. That's what I should probably do because I use it so often, but I don't. I pay monthly. But you can dive on in and then leave. Like I say, there is a free trial as well with both the free and the pro. So you can dive in and see what the extras are there. Have 2 weeks of playing around. But yeah, I think there's no minimum term unless you pay for the year and get that discount. So I think it's like £2 or £3 a month discount. So depending on whether you're going to use it or not. So yeah, no, sign up for a month and try it.
Exactly. I used to do that I had a pro for a month and then I would cancel it and then I would go back in 6 months and I would cancel it until I got to the point of using it so much because they evolved so much in my business evolved that I do now have a going membership. But it reminds me I definitely should buy a year because it makes more sense to pay one off for the whole year because I know I will need to use it. I have a question, and I'm curious if you could tell me a little bit more about their new animation, video, moving things, because I've just scratched the surface of what is possible with animations on Canva, and I keep seeing way more things popping up.
Yeah, so I've got a section a little bit further on. So I'll wait until I get to that bit and then we'll dive on. Hopefully it's working. We'll dive on in and show you a few different bits because I know that's one of the things that's quite exciting at the minute as well. It's not too far. I won't leave you waiting too long. So we'll move on to the next bit. So showing off your logo, one of the other things that people often get asked, say just the Instagram stories, you've just asked then about the logo too. Sometimes it's quite nice to start adding your logo into posts for social media. So again, we're talking social media here. If it's anything else, I would always say yes, especially if it's printed stuff. For social media, it often comes within a platform that's already got your logo on there somewhere. So it's not a necessity, but I always think it's nice to keep putting it out there every now and then. So always have a look of how you can incorporate your logo or your website or your name, for example, something that people recognize you. Because if your post gets shared and it goes on to someone else who's outside of your network, they can find out where it comes from. And that way you're going to build your network and your reach again. So it's always a good use. And there's lots of different ways of doing it. That's why it's always good to have your logo in a few different options. So full color, and a reverse, like a mono version, so white. So depending on what background you're going to place it on, it'll work no matter what. So you can use white backgrounds for darker logos, or if it was the other way around, the white logo on the dark, just so it stands out. Because if you're going to put it on there, you want to make sure that it's visible. So overlays on flat color. This is an overlay here, so it's just a slight transparency, just so that we can see the website clear. So it's just one of the things to think about when you're starting to create social media posts, especially, is how your logo and your presence is seen on that. It doesn't have to be on everyone, but if you're putting it out there every now and then it just reminds people of who you are and what you're saying. And again, I say if it gets shared, then people know that they can come back to you, and no one else takes credit for it too, which is always quite a nice thing. One of the questions I got asked, actually, I think it was Cambridge last year, was about watermarking images and things like that. So if you're a product business, for example, and you want to incorporate your logo, there's questions around whether you want to watermark them and stuff so people can't steal your images. But sometimes it often takes away from your beautiful products or images or whatever it is that you're showing off. So using them in the corner or something like that is just a nice way of doing it. If you've got the reverse out logo, it often goes on those product images. Again, just so people can see those images and link back to you in your products. I just remember that question came up. So tip number 5, every image tells a story. So I just wanted to share with people how you can find images within Canva, because there is a lot of them. Again, on the free version, there's like 6,000 plus free images. So within your menu down the left hand side, you can click on photos and it will come up with free or pro, which it never used to do. And it was so difficult to try and find the ones that were free and the ones that were paid for. The ones that are free, say free on them. The ones that are pro will come up with a little crown and pro. So if you're on the free version, you'll get asked to pay for these images. So again, we will go back to that template option. If you use a template that has a paid for image and you're on the free, you can just remove that image and put a free one in. You can also upload your own images quite simply, both on the free and the pro version, which just helps put your stamp on it. So if you've got your own photography that you use, this is a great way of instantly getting your brand out there across all of the visuals that you're creating. So that's just a quick tip. We'll see if this is back working. It's not. We'll close that one down just to show you where that one is, because often we'll see if it loads. Oh, it's not going to load, is it? Good job, I took screenshots. I'll leave that one going. But yeah, it's down the left hand side, and you can choose ones that are based around color, orientation, and availability, which if you've used Canva for a little while, it was quite tricky to find. You had to put a funny little code in to try and find the free ones. It was like a hidden feature, but just to show you how you can find different images. There's lots of different image filters as well that come with both options, free and pro, that you can do. So if you're wanting to use a particular style of image, so say you've got all your stock images, but you want to use black and white, and you really like that one, but you want the black and white one, you don't have to be a Photoshop expert. You can simply click on the filter and it will change it to black and white. And there's lots of different ones. So if you want to set a certain style, thinking Instagram as well, you've got a certain filter that you use. I find one that's as close to the Instagram filter that I like, and then I can keep that consistency there. So there's lots of different things with a click of a button that you can start to change the way images look. So don't think you've just got to use the images that are there. You can start to be creative with things. I've thrown a little bit in about grids and frames because it seems to confuse a lot of people. So a little bit of animation, a little bit of video. So the grids are great for if you're putting together multiple different images. And if, see if Canva is working. No, I'm gonna exit, see what happens. Oh, I tell you what, I'll close it and we'll reopen it and we'll see what happens. Just so I can show, it's hard to show it without it. What did I tell you, Lenka? Hey?
Yeah, it always happens. I'm always trying not to do anything else. Otherwise, I will just click somewhere, and because it's using my bandwidth, that out of nowhere the signal will get blurry. So even though I tend to take photos and I want to screenshots and go live and tweet something, I'm just trying not to touch my phone, not to touch my laptop.
That's it. Oh, won't touch anything. We'll see. I'll leave it there. Typical. I might not be able to show that animation after all. But so yeah, so the grids is a great way of using multiple images, and you can also use them. There's a few different ones which I wish I could show you. I've got like an image on one side and a plain bit on the other. They're just a great way of so that you don't have to start resizing different images. There's lots of different ones as well, from full squares to ones like this that are more montagey, to cut off triangles. There's lots of different ones, so it's a great way of you simply just drag and drop the image into the grid and it works quite nicely. And the frames is another great one. There's loads of different options. So this little laptop here is a frame within Canva, and you can drop whatever you want into it. So the images, video, which just allows you to get a little bit more creative with the way that you're showing off video and images. So there's lots of different things there. So take a look into the grids and frames section and see. Again, it keeps everything neat and tidy without you having to say, oh, that's not quite lined up there and that's not straight. And the frames, there's little MacBooks like this, there's phones, iPads, different shapes, there's letters that you can put images into. There's loads of different things. So it just adds a little bit more of creativity for you. And that's not loading. I can still see it white in the background.
It might be if you turn off your camera, it might help for a little. Basically, we'll see your sweet face, but it might help with the bandwidth for a little.
Might it? How do I do that? There we go. That would be a question. Oh, hang on. Bye. Stop video. You can still hear me though, right?
Yes, we can still hear you.
Good.
We can still see your screen, so you're here with us. We'll see if this helps.
Wait for it.
Happy with us? Before we try to figure this out, there is an interesting question from Farah, who's asking if you can embed links, in case he's wondering if you can get people to click on the image generated by Canva and it would take you to the Meetup or Eventbrite location.
Yes, there is a way of doing it. Let me close that one down and reset it. So there is a way of doing it. So if you download as JPEGs and PNGs, you can't. But if you download as PDFs, for example, you can. And I'm trying to think of the other one. I'm trying to remember what was there without seeing it. There is a few, if you go onto the download, there's a few different options. PDFs, I know that you can download interactive PDFs. So any links that you're putting on there. JPEGs and PNGs don't, unfortunately, though, as far as I know. But depending on what you're creating. But again, if you can't, just make sure that the URL's on there and add it to whatever's going alongside it. But it's a good question. I'd like them to be able to do that. That would be really good. But I will.
It would be very cool if you could share a photo on Facebook, and instead of you clicking on the photo and photos it enlarges, it would be interactive photo, and the photo would actually work like a link. But unfortunately, this is not how the technology works these days. So when you create an image and you share it on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, then you need to add the link to the copy, or you need to add the link somewhere else, rather than just having the image clickable, which isn't anything about Canva. It's just how JPEGs and other formats of photo and video work.
Yeah, that's right. You never know where technology is going. It might change at some point. That's not working. We'll leave it go. We'll leave it. I'll leave my camera off for a little bit and we'll see if that works. Yeah. So resizing. So again, this is the value of the paid version. So custom dimensions you can do in the free, but within the paid one, you can say this is all set for Instagram. You can simply click resize and choose a few of these. So if you wanted it to change it into a flyer, for example, or a Facebook cover, you'd simply click those, copy and resize, and it would create those files at those sizes for you, which again, it just saves all that time. So if you're trying to create something for everything, say you've got an event on like this one, and you want to create all these different promotion graphics, it's quite an easy way of being able to, sometimes you need to slight readjust, but it's slight readjust is better than recreating from scratch. So just a bit of the value of the paid version. Again, if you're not creating lots of stuff, the free version works just as well. So just to let you know that that one's there. And a bit into typography and fonts, because this is one of the things that people struggle with a little bit. So less fonts, the clearer the message. So if you've got your brand toolkit, you'll have your fonts there ready, which is awesome. You'll know what you're doing and you just use those ones. Don't be tempted to use anything else because there's lots of nice ones in there. I told you there's food everywhere in this presentation. But if you haven't and you're starting from scratch and you're looking for what fonts to use, or you're working with a client who doesn't have fonts, choose two. Canva has a great resource kit on their site about how you use fonts together. I can't create anything better than theirs. Theirs is brilliant. So I'll try and find the link for that one for you. But stick to two fonts if you can, because that just makes it much easier. A third is sometimes nice to add a bit of a flourish, but even as a designer, it's really hard to make 4, 5, 6 different fonts work together. So keep your fonts as simple as possible. If you've got your brand toolkit, you probably only have 1 or 2 anyway. If you're starting from scratch, choose 2 or 3 and use the resources that Canva have got to how you match them up to represent a message. Just makes it so much easier to try and create things. Like I say, I would struggle with too many of them. It gets very fighty and no one quite knows what you're trying to say. And a bit of hierarchy of information. So these are more of the design tips from from my background of how you start to make visuals readable, so that it's not just a lot of stuff and you throw in lots of things at it. So think about what message it is. You may just be going down the photographic route, but if you're starting to introduce text, think about how people are reading it. So for example, this one, you've got the headline, which is large and clean. There's lots of white space around it. You've got a bit of body copy here, which is smaller but not too small, that is still legible. You've got a call to action, which often we make slightly different to the body copy so that it stands out, whether that's putting it on a coloured background, bolding it, just so it's got that hierarchy. So here you would probably read this first. You may look at who it's from, then you go to the body copy, and then you go to the call to action. It just helps the eye read what you want them to read and not see lots of information in a very small space, especially when we're talking social, because they've got a split second to try and take in what you're saying. So if there's lots of stuff all at the same size, it can get quite confusing. So just a little bit on the hierarchy. It's a slightly more advanced bit, but just to have a think about if you are using lots of different text, make the emphasis on the messages that you want. So here it would be the sale. And in a more simple way, this would be a blog header or something like that, or an email newsletter header. So we've got the headline, the subtitle, and then there again, we've added the website and the business name so you know where it's from. So again, less copy, but they've still got that hierarchy, so you still know where the eye's going to read from, and the messages still get across quite clear. Too many C's. So headlines and description. So this is just an idea. So if you haven't got your brand fonts and you're starting to have a look at what you want to use, again, that Canva resource will help too. But anything more script, anything like this, works better for shorter headlines and 1 or 2 word graphics. If you're trying to put a lot of body copy in that, no one will be able to read it, or not very well. And more of the simple, neutral, open fonts work well as long form and paragraph body. So quickly go back to this one. This would be your body copy, so you can see it's quite a simple font, so it's quite legible. But often people get confused with all the different fonts and they're not quite sure which one should be which. So that's just a general rule of thumb from a design point of view. And again, here we can see if you use anything too scripty in a very short, in a very small space, it starts to become quite hard to read. My screen's very big, so I can just about read that. But you want it not something too scripty. You want it to be legible so they can read it quickly. If it is social media, people are scrolling, so they want to be able to see things straight away and take it in. And unless it's really eye-catching, they're not going to scroll past because they haven't got the time. Whereas you also want to think about how the text overlays on images. So use coloured overlays if you need text to stand out on photography. The overlays are dead simple to do in Canva. You simply use a shape, and then in the top right is a transparency, and it's my camera's off and I'm pointing at the screen. There's a little slider which helps you kind of fade back the colour or fade it. You just want to fade it just slightly, just so that you can see the text over images. So just think about the legibility as well when you're using heavy text on visuals. Very simple tip. Make sure there's lots of white space. It's very easy to start trying to use images and text in visuals and try and mash them together. This is a very simple example, but in Canva you can start resizing images to leave a lot of space, which helps. And again, if people are looking at things quickly, you want that white space around them so that they can get your message without getting confused. If the image isn't working, have a look and see if there's an alternative image. It's much harder to try and force something than have to see what other options are available out there. But for that time of looking for something, is worth it being able to be read. Again, this is a very simple example, but just to try and get that point across.
Yeah, I would just add that we actually had a very interesting workshop about on-brand smartphone photography about 2 months. We have a recording of it. And if you haven't joined that one, then I would highly recommend you have a look, where Elodie showed us actually how to use our smartphone to create on-brand visuals, photos of ourselves, of our brand. And she touched exactly on this, on already with the photography, planning for the design to creating the space. So obviously, we're looking at using Canva immediately, but it could be also a very strategic tool. And then it comes together with your photography and with creating all your own bank of visuals, even again by yourself, but thinking about the photo before you take the photo and thinking about where the text might go before you actually take the pictures is another practical tip.
Yeah, that's a really good tip, and it's oh, I might have to check that one out because it's good. As designers, we love getting images that have been thought of before they've been taken, so that we can use them, and there's space for us to place text and things like that. We love it when it's been thought out, and it does make your life a lot easier down the line. So yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah.
Here's all in sync. This, I like it. Another little tip, again, it's more for my OCD than anything else, is aligning everything up. And Canva have made it much more simple than they used to. You used to have to hover and try and find this very faint line here to try and get things central. It's all about those little details that will make it from kind of amateur to stand out. It's all these little details. So alignment is one of those ones, and it's one thing that some people find a little more tricky. But Canva has made it much easier with now having these align kind of settings here. So you'd simply, if we chose this top line here, this headline, and then this subtitle, we'll go back, and we clicked left, they would all line up to the left together, whereas before we kind of had to use a bit of a tricky grid. So it's always good to have an anchor point, especially when you're using a lot of text. So here you can see everything's been aligned there. So again, the eye reads it the way it wants to. So it's a bit more of a designery tip than a Canva tip, but Canva's made it much easier for you to be able to do stuff like this that really does set you apart from other people. Like you say, it's all those little details. It still does have these little faint lines, so if you click and drag text, it will line up in the center and these little lines will come to help you. But these little align elements are great, so you can align to wherever you need to. And the spacing as well. So if you've got donuts, just came into my head, I think it's the video before, if you've got 6 donuts on your graphic, for example, and you want them all evenly spread across the middle, you can start to use these horizontal and vertical ones, and it'll kind of space them out perfectly for you. There's no more fiddling around. So these things are really good to have a little bit of a play around with, especially if you've got text or donuts on your screen. Food, see. Yeah, it helps to remove that look that things are floating. I say it's just that little attention to detail. Background removal. So this is I say it's reasonably new. I'd say this year feels a bit odd, but this year, I think I mentioned this before. It's one of the things that a lot of people had asked for. People would have to send me an image to cut out in Photoshop to send back to them to do it themselves, so they can use it themselves in Canva. Now Canva does it for you, and it's really simple. You'd use your image, you'd go to effects, and background remover appears. And I've not touched that image. It looks like I've cut it out in Photoshop, and it works perfectly. The more complex the image, it doesn't tend to like, but it has to be a very busy image. If she was stood in a forest, it might not work. But on the whole, it works really, really well. And again, that is the pro version. So if you're using a lot of this, people will use this to overlay onto back plain colors, kind of montage lots of different people together if they're doing an event. There's lots of different ways you'd use it, but lots of people have loved this feature that's come out now. So it does help. Again, it takes that need for that designer to be on board and puts everything back into your hands. Video. Now this is where I wanted this to work. The only thing is, if I close down Chrome, you'll, oh no, hang on, let me do that in yes, you are in Chrome. I had to work that. I was like, I'll try and open a different browser for the moment, because I want it to work for you guys. Technology, hey.
It's always fun, you know. I love doing these events and everything, and the human aspect is the important aspect for me, but then you have to learn how to deal with technology, and sometimes the technology will do whatever the technology wants to do.
That's it. It just has its own little, yeah.
It's its own universe. You just need to accept.
That's it. Well, we'll cope. We'll cope. If I'll tell you what now, if it doesn't load at all in this session, what I'll do is I'll record a few different videos and send them to you so that you can see what I've been talking about, just so that you know, because we'll see. Just as a backup plan, I'll say that now. I'd say Canva's still working, and that's in Chrome, so who knows. So video, anyway. So video and animation is pretty much a newish thing again. It's been rolled out across different accounts. Some people get things sooner than others, so we hold on, wait them. But they've got a bank of videos that you can use, just like stock images. They've got stock video that you can use. There's so much in there, or you can upload your own. So this one on the left here, donut, see, I knew it was coming, is a stock video that's from within Canva itself. And there's a whole bank, which I could show you, whole bank of videos that you can scroll through, just like you would photos or illustrations, graphics. You would search for them and you just drag and drop. This is one of the frames that I talked about earlier on. This little phone here, so it works exactly the same as the images do, and you can trim the videos down, you can change how long they're going to last. You can overlay the text over that video quite happily, and you can start to introduce little animations. There's so many different animations as well on there. Just like if you're on Instagram stories, for example, and you can add all those little GIFs and those little words and things on, Canva's got all of that within Canva as well. So there's so much you can do and layer up that kind of the options are just unlimited, really. This one on the right, I've actually started using Canva for creating, you know, the little social media kind of video snippets. Not my video again because I'm showing things on screen. The little social media video snippets. So I'll have longer videos that I'll cut down and try and show little snippets of. I've started using Canva as a way of creating them. It's not the most technical thing. I'm not a video editor by any means, not even close. But you can just use the assets that they've got. So I've uploaded my own video up into Canva. I've then be able to use the square template, upload my own logo, use my brand fonts, put my video in, download as an MP4, and then I can drop it into something like Headliner and add the captions on the bottom. So I think it's a great way of being able to start creating lots more different things than just the standard social media post. And like I say, I've been creating these for clients and they're just super easy to do. So there's a few different examples of how you can use videos there. Like I say, I wish I could show you more of the things, but at least I put some examples in. What bits do you like about the video, Lenka? Have you tried a few different things with video?
I haven't tried much. The first thing I've noticed was when they launched the animate on a slide, which kind of works if you're creating a slideshow or something, it just animates the elements on your slide. So I started doing similar to what you have the square there, but I would have the text kind of fly in. So it would be very simple graphic with some text, but the text would move. So that was my first thing that I've noticed about Canva, that I can actually turn my stills into very basic animations with text moving or the images popping out, that it just creates a little movement on the eye on social media, and I'm seeing lots more results from social media where it really just grabs people's attention, so the reach and impressions are much higher. But yeah, I haven't had a chance to play much with the video. I do love their templates where you have lots of the tiny little elements just popping around quotes. So
Yeah.
that's fun. But yeah, I haven't touched the video much just yet, but it's why I'm super excited to see what's possible.
That's it. I mean, there's so many, all the templates, there's so many different things. I've got a few examples of animation. That went very fast then, didn't it? There's some animation there, but that just went a little bit crazy. There you go, that's a bit of animation. So the animation as well, the side of things, so quite often they're used together, which, as you say, makes it just stand out and just takes it to that next level. It grabs the eye, you get that engagement, and it's just amazing that it's not actually a lot of work to be able to do them. You get a little bit more animation. So these might be similar sort of things that you were thinking about, Lenka. So we've got, again, food. What is it for food?
Good example.
There we go. So that's got a little bit of animation when it first appears. Everything kind of shifts up. So again, I'll do a video to show you all how the animation works, and I'll share it with Lenka and see if she can share out to you all. But there is, if you've got your social media graphic here, you've set that up in Canva, right at the top it appears animate, and you simply click on animate, and you can't animate all the little individual things. You can't have one going off left, one going off right, and that sort of level, but you've just got that simple animation, which actually I think's nicer in a way. It makes it more simple, it's easier to do, and you're not having to think, well, where's that one coming in at that time? And which I get confused with PowerPoint because there's too many different, I just don't do the animations because there's too much to think about. But this little style of animation, I think, is just enough to add that kind of, and then we've got the little extra animations here. So you've got the animate at the top left, which will move all these different elements, and then there's loads of little stickers. So they're similar to kind of Instagram story stickers that you can add on. So that's where these little lines appear here, and layering them up I think is quite effective. I've got another example here, pancakes, where this is animation. So again, we'll have had this set up on a square canvas within Canva. You click on animate and it'll be something like swiping left, and everything will come in, and then you've got the video that's overlaid on the top, which I just think works really well, the two things together. And I think like I say, that endless possibilities. So it's worth having a look, because this is quite a new thing as well, having a look through the templates. These are templates that are already created, pardon me. So worth having a look through and seeing what templates are there, what's being done, and see if that sparks any ideas. Because even these two, I was like, oh, that's what I could do for mine. This is what I could do. So have a think about how you can start layering them up. And what I would say is, I'd say start simple. So if you're brand new to Canva, get used to doing the stills and how that all lays out, and kind of making it look visually appealing, and then upgrade it. So we're talking about those content upgrades again. So upgrade it to use animation, and then upgrade it to video if you can. It's constantly just building on things. Don't feel like you've got to go right to this level, because I'm still learning this stuff, because there's new stuff coming out all the time. There's a few different examples of and then at the back here, I've just pulled together, these are very simple examples of going back to where we were at the start, of how the brand toolkits work together and how they kind of, you bring them to make the visual. So I'll fly through these, but just to bring it back to that first section that we were talking about. So again, you've got your brand fonts, your brand colors, and your images, so you can start to create your consistent on brand graphics. And this has been created by everything in Canva. Everything's been done in Canva, including the presentation slides. Filters on the images, squares with borders added on, overlays, transparencies. They've got little elements like lines just to break up different elements of your design. Again, try and keep it as simple as possible for things like this. But again, you can see how that brand font has been brought through. Another example, so Instagram story. So again, these will have been as templates, but we've updated them to use our brand fonts, our brand colors, brand images, and for this made up example, there's icons. So there's lots of icons and things in Canva. You can upload your own and use them, but there's all of that inside Canva as well. So there's a lot to work with. Again, all these different elements have been created within Canva. So the pineapple icon, there's a little trick that I do with adding a bit of depth onto background. So this darker yellow here, if you can see the difference between the two, is just a triangle that's slightly darker shade with the transparency pushed back, and it sometimes just adds that bit of depth onto it. But again, our images have been uploaded. There's lots of different circles, squares, different textures, loads of different things. So see how that fits in with your brand toolkit. You can start to see how they translate across quite easily. Infographics are probably one of the most complicated things to do. They take a lot of planning, but if you're feeling confident, you can dive in and do infographics. There's loads of different templates as well for infographics in Canva as well now. They've been increasing them. So there's loads, there's graphs and everything. So if this is something that works with your brand and you're doing a lot of stats and a lot of data things, have a look and see if there's something you could use for infographics within there. Like I say, it takes a little bit more planning, but it's all possible. Again, you can see how that sort of brand toolkit would pull through into infographics. Again, all these different elements are all from within Canva itself. The graphs, I think, are quite cool, because you get the Excel, it's as if it's Excel spreadsheets, and you can put the data in and it creates a very pretty graph. So there's lots of possibilities in there. More food. So animations, again, just showing the different possibilities of how everything translates across to make it dead simple. And then video as well. It's trying to play. But just to bring it back round to that beginning point of where you start and where you end up, starting with that brand toolkit and where you end. So I think I've got a little bit more on the new features, which I can't show you because it's not working, but I'll tell you quickly and then we'll get with questions, if that's all right, Lenka.
Oh, that's good.
So you can schedule to social media now, and you've got a whole content calendar within there. So in the menu down the left hand side, I'm trying to remember this, there's a calendar, and within that it's literally the month of the calendar, and you can click into, say, tomorrow and create the graphic, and it would, for the pro version, it would schedule it to go out. So if you're creating lots of graphics and you want everything within Canva for sharing to social, I know lots of people use different programs, but I think it's just a good, it's been asked for a long time. So that's quite an exciting new feature that's come out literally last month. And text effects as well, which I was really excited about. So before, you had to try and recreate a shadow on a text if you wanted a shadow text, or a blur for a neon text. So now there's loads of different text effects that you can do, and they're all pretty much available on the free. I was having to play around this morning. So where I had that YouTube thumbnails text where it's double overlaid, there's stuff like that you can do. You can add on shadows. There's loads of different things. So if you have a look around in the text effect section in Canva, there's loads of new stuff. So that's what I was really excited about to show you. And there's lots of other things. So new style suggestions, music and audio, Canva Live, which is a new thing that I haven't delved into yet. But yes, I will keep you posted with what's coming up next. But yeah, I think this is just a roundup. Remember your brand toolkit first, stick to a couple of templates, make sure your text is legible, don't use too many fonts in one visual, use high quality images. So if you are uploading any images into Canva, make sure that they're high quality, normally 300 dpi, bigger than you need basically, so you can shrink them down, because there's nothing worse than trying to create this beautiful new graphic and then you upload an image and it's all pixelated. So higher quality, the better. Don't cram too much into one visual. Remember the white space, and remember why you're creating, and add value, because that's what you want to do for your viewing audience, is to give them more value through a visual way rather than a written way. Yeah, so that's
Awesome.
most of it. Yeah.
Fantastic. I will read through the questions. I will dive into it. But I did manage to open Canva on my browser. So if afterwards we want to recap some of the things, I opened a couple of apps with a couple of the things, so we can go at especially the new features and actually have a look, and we can swap sharing screens, and I can actually show people some of the stuff. So if you think of some things and you will navigate me, then hopefully we can make it happen.
Yes.
But before that, we have a couple of questions. Sarah has a question. What's the best size for infographic on LinkedIn?
So you're pretty much, you can be, I'm trying to think now. I normally have all my social media sizes on my board, but I haven't. You can pretty much go as long. So what I tend to do is create smaller versions of your infographic so that they can be broken down. But pretty much I would go as long as you can, but keep the width to, trying to remember off the top of my head now. I'm going to fail here. What's the width of a LinkedIn post? I must know that one, Linka. Is it 1200? I think.
I don't have the numbers in my head. I do
it's
have
around
in
12,
my template.
1200, I think, width. And then you can go as long. But what I would say is try, if you can, a clever way to do it with infographics is to try and create it so that it can be broken down into sections. So if it's going to be really long, you want to be able to break it down, and then you've got more posts as well, and then link them to a blog post where they can see the full thing. That tends to be how I cleverly work them. Try and repurpose it and get as much content out of one infographic as possible. But I've often used the squares and broken that down into little squares. So if that helps.
Yeah, exactly. I would say that that's the best way, because obviously if the image is very long, as the infographic tends to be very long, then LinkedIn will cut it and it will not put the whole image in there. It will just appear off on the page, and it might then be too detailed for people to see. But there is the functionality on LinkedIn to upload a slideshow. So you can break down your infographic into series of slides, and people can flick through it as a PDF. And you can use exactly the same trick on Instagram, where you can create a bank of 10 images, break down the infographic, and have it as one post. So I think it's a great idea of thinking about repurposing your content. Yes, it could be infographic perfect for Pinterest in the long form. Yes, it can sit on your website as a long form. But when it comes to actually sharing it on social media, I would always keep in mind the individual platform and think about ways how people would get the most out of it. And for LinkedIn, definitely, it's so powerful having it as a slideshow where each slide is a message on its own. So it's much easier for people, again, capture their attention and get the message and understand it.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, it doesn't have to be that way. It can be that way that you're moving along for that. So yeah, it's a good point. I like that.
Yeah. Another question is asking, do you think you could do all your scheduled social on Canva? And is there an additional cost to that?
I missed the start of that one, sorry.
Do you think you should or could do all your scheduled social media posting on Canva?
I've not tried it out to its fullest because it's quite a new. I've only had it recently. Whether you should do it all on that, I suppose it depends on where you're publishing to and how much you're doing of it. If it's going to be very image heavy, then I suppose you could do. If there's lots of different types of content going out and some of the visual graphics are only part of it, then it might be better to use something that you put it all into, I use Agora Pulse, so I have video bits going out, image bits, text bits. So I put everything into there. I also use Content Cow with a client who kind of does the same thing. So whether it's powerful enough to schedule everything, I think we'll soon find out. But I think if it's going to be fully image heavy and that's all you're posting, then it could be a good option if you haven't got any other one. And publish it and scheduling is the pro option. So you'd have to have Canva Pro for scheduling out.
I definitely think that it's a great thing to have it, especially if you're just starting out, you don't want to be paying for too many tools, and you've already decided that Canva is one of those tools that you will be paying for, then it definitely helps you save costs on paying for additional tools and moving things from one place to the other. But I would say that obviously it can do one thing, and it's schedule. And when it comes to social media management, you want a tool to be able to probably do more than just schedule. You would like, at least I would like from a tool to be able to plan, to have a place to really map out my content, see how it will look like when it goes on the social media channel, to have a preview option, be able to put some tags, to be able to analyze it better, and ideally to have the functionality to monitor the results and get all the mentions and everything in one place. So it's definitely a good add-on. And I think that now might be a good way to actually have a quick look at it. So I will stop sharing my screen and I will go sharing my screen. So we'll go for, and I will just quickly share what we missed in terms of. So when you're on Canva, the content planner is on the left side. It's over here. When you click on it, it will open pretty much a calendar like this for you. And yeah, as Claire said, you pick a date, you click, you can create new design, or you could choose a design that you've already created. It will open up all your designs you have. So let's say you're scheduling for Instagram, you will pick the Instagram one. It will bring, if you have more, I usually have more within one template. So it will bring more of them. It's struggling with the visuals, but you can see actually how the scheduler look like. So you can pick the date, you can edit the time, you can then pick the network. You can see I have 45 pages in here, so maybe not all of them. I can pick which one I want, and I can then add the caption here. So it's good to, you know, for the basics. It definitely can work as a starting point. I will see how people, definitely it's an early start for this tool. We'll see how people will be using it, if there are any hacks and tricks and tips over time. So we'll definitely bring you those. Was there something else we wanted to show when I'm sharing?
Did you want to show the animation and the different options for the animation?
Yeah. So if you're in your design, so I opened it and design. So then already you can see that there are some random visuals added. And then I already picked animate. So over here, usually it says animate. I've already, if I pick none, it will show me animate. So on the top of, so whichever slide I choose, it will always on the top give me the option to animate it. And here I can choose from a couple, just a simple one. So for me, I started just with the block-in text, or you can have the elements kind of to show up and pop up in the different ways. I think it's a great way to just add a little bit more of a dimension to your still images.
Definitely.
I think one of the things you talked about were the effects for text. So if I pick a text, I can then play around with the effects and make it a little more contrasting, use the same font, it's still on brand font, but play around with it a little bit more, and I can change lots of things about it over here. So this is quite fun. I actually haven't noticed it before, so
yeah, it's such a simple thing, but it's kind of like, oh, that text would just, I just need a shadow on there. Sometimes it's to make it stand out a little bit, or I've actually got a client whose font looks like this, but they don't have the paid for, so we can't upload the font, but this kind of recreates it a little bit. So I was like, yay, we can create it. So it's just these little things that, again, you don't need an hour designer to add a drop shadow onto your text for you and send it back. It's just little effects that, again, don't get carried away by all of them, because there is a lot there. But if you're going to use one and use it consistently. But I think it just adds a bit more fun and a bit more creativity. It's come a long way, and there's a lot more scope for having a bit of fun and being more creative with it now. It's kind of like gone from Microsoft Paint all the way up to as close to Photoshop as it'll get without being a designer. Yeah. But I think there's loads more as well to come. So we'll keep posted on all the new features that are around the corner.
An interesting question from Raphael asking, is posting good design enough to grow a following?
I would say it contributes towards it. It's not just the design itself. For example, if we go back to John Experience example, he's got some great visuals, but he's built that following through the content first, and then he's enhanced it with the visuals and attracted people through that. And then people have noticed it, and that's when they've started following, because he's attracted them more through his visuals. But his content was where don't want to dismiss the value of design, being a designer, but you've got to have the content to back up the design. It can't just look great and then fall flat on its face. They've got to work together. So I'd say it's definitely an element of growing a good following, but it's not strong enough by itself. It needs the content and vice versa.
I think that it really much depends on the business you're in. If you're a photographer, then yeah, pretty much your photos should be able to stand alone and just a visual. If your visuals are so strongly representing what you're selling, if it's a product and just the beautiful design arrangement can just make people to tap on it and go and buy, then it's great. But yes, I would say that especially if you're B2B and service, this is one of the most challenging ones, often for design purposes. Then the design is just an enhancement, but the copy and the effort into actually proactively building the network and connecting with people and so on is crucial as well. But definitely the design tag can really speed up the process of growing and as well attract a higher quality audience. So obviously not always you're looking for quantity, you will be looking for quality and looking at presenting yourself professionally, and really stepping up your game can then help you attract those higher quality clients who are already themselves on the next level. So they will appreciate, they will understand seeing higher quality visuals, and they will be absolutely understanding that higher quality visuals, higher quality content comes with a higher quality price tag.
Yeah, you nailed it on the head there. It's definitely, it's to know that they can see that you've thought about that thing in that detail. It's valuable. So yeah.
We had a question previously in the RSVP list. Someone was asking about Canva on mobile, because most of the things we talked about was Canva on desktop, and I'm pretty much exclusively using Canva on desktop. But I just heard some people mentioning that they're using it on mobile as well. I know that ages ago, where I first attempted, the app was disastrous, and for a while Canva was pretty much pushing for desktop only. But is there a change to it? Would you recommend the Canva mobile app?
It's not my favorite, if I'm honest. It's very fiddly. I think if you have a good go at it and you know where things are, but it's just not as intuitive and well laid out as the desktop. They've actually just brought out kind of the desktop app, so you can do the browser or the desktop app now, which I use all the time. I've tried to use the mobile app at conferences and things like that. When I'm on the go, I'm like, oh, that'd be great. But I can't, I find it really, really difficult. I do know some people that use it, but I think they've used it so often that they've kind of found their way around it. So yeah, that's not a very good answer. But desktop's so much easier to work with, and it's quicker, I think. So if you're looking for quicker and efficient But it might be that if you're, for example, I was using the mobile because I was at conferences and events and things. So I would make sure I've got all my templates set up in that account for me to then drop in those images. Whereas that was, I went against my own rules and thought, oh, I'll try it now while I'm on the road. And it backfired a little bit. So if you are going to use mobile, that would be a bit of a tip. Have a look before you need something right now. But yeah, it's not
Yeah,
the easiest.
that was my only thinking how I could potentially want to use it is have, especially where we were talking Instagram stories or something like that, where I want to use it as a background and overlay something on top of it. And then I potentially want to change a date or change something about it. So then I might open it on my mobile and quickly, if I already have the template ready, change. Don't move things around, just change the copy or something, or remove a thing and then download it straight to my phone if I want to use it in stories. But I would agree that there are better mobile apps for mobile design on the go.
Yeah, definitely.
There was an interesting question asking about what advantages there are in terms of search engine optimization or social media exposure or something else I'm not aware from using Canva.
Oh, that's a tricky one. I did see this one come through and I was like, oh, search engine optimization tends to be, well, I'm not an SEO expert by any means, but any images that I upload, whether they've been designed in Photoshop or Canva, I'll always tag properly, file name properly. So if it's for a client, it'll be their client name. If it's a blog post, what their blog post title is, and their keywords in there. But anything that's uploaded, Google just takes everything, doesn't it? I know if I upload something to WordPress, for example, my images appear everywhere because I've tagged them properly. So using Canva, I suppose, isn't the advantage of it. It's what you're doing with the visuals once you've downloaded them and tagging them properly. That's as far as I know about SEO side of things and visuals. That's not a great answer either, is it?
That's definitely a good point with having the file name already keyword saturated, of using the name actually, something that when you upload it, that's what Google will read. The same now, most of the social media channels are allowing to have alt tags, so they're trying to be more accessible. So again, having the image saved with the correct name will then help your social media to translate the image into an alt tag, which then is used when people with visual disability or similar are trying to view your content in social media.
Yeah, that's it. It's. I didn't realize the power of naming visuals right until probably the last year or so. And then if you do a Google search on yourself and everything comes up, it's like, oh, that's something because I've tagged them right. So yeah, it's definitely worth doing. So wherever you're creating the visuals, name it right, for sure.
I think that's all I can see from questions that we've got so far. So if you have any last minute questions, do let us know quickly so we can ask Claire. I will quickly scroll through. If I haven't missed anything, I've missed any, please shout in comments. But I think
give us a shout.
We talked a lot about using it for social media and digital. Do you have any quick tips for if I would say you want to do a flyer or a brochure or just a business card because I'm just starting out? Any designer tips?
Probably all the same tips that we've said for creating digi stuff, all the same kind of design principles apply. Especially when it comes to flyers, make sure everything's legible. Think about that hierarchy of text. Especially the one thing I would say about the printed stuff is you definitely need to make sure your images that you're using and any logos you're uploading are high res so that you can upload them. So when they're downloaded and printed, that they look perfect. Digital, you can get away with a lot more due to the resolutions, but with printed stuff, so flyers, business cards, brochures, anything like that, make sure anything that you're using is high res. Brochures are quite difficult to use to create in Canva if you're going over a certain amount of pages. So if you get past 8 pages, it can be quite difficult because there's lots of different texts and things. Workbooks work really well in Canva if you're doing workbooks for events or workshops, or again, downloadables or anything like that. They're really great to create in Canva and print off. I have a few clients that do that. Anything too text heavy gets quite intense to go through everything and making sure all the space between the text, but print's easily possible, and Canva has its own print on demand service as well, so if it was printed stuff, there's possibilities there.
That's one of the things I just wanted to share quickly, because I only noticed it recently, because I've been using Canva the way I've always been using Canva for a long time, and all the new features started just popping up. And I noticed that when you click next to download, because I always go for download, like that's all I do.
Yeah.
There's so many more options now. You can obviously share a link, you can present it with a presentation, you can, go straight to Facebook page, email, you can save to Google Drive or Dropbox, straight away choose where to sync it, you can go straight to MailChimp, you can share it on Slack, and yes, you have options straight away to print t-shirts, flyers, cards, letterhead, postcards. There's so many options that actually you can get a code to embed it somewhere. You can go straight for obviously now scheduling and stuff like that. You can add it to your type form if you're creating a survey, and all these things I've never seen before. So I think there's a lot more to Canva than obviously, yes, you can design things, but you can play around, like your integrations. You can use it for emojis, you can use it for Google Maps, QR codes, and you can obviously then search through all the pixels and pixabay third-party photos stuff. You can add GIFs from Giphy, which is amazing. So you don't need to download and upload. You can search straight over here. So I think it's a very, very powerful tool.
They're adding so much all the time. I know all the new integrations, there seems to be more every day. I get an email every time there's a new thing, so I'm like, oh, there's a new thing there. Let's say the type effects, I only got an email yesterday for that one, so I was like, but it gets rolled out, you're like, oh, I want lots of the new features. So yeah, keep an eye out, because there is lots of new stuff happening all the time. Yeah, lots. It's fitting into your bigger thing now rather than being a standalone tool, which I think is really exciting.
Well, that's it. That's a wrap. I think we've reached so much. We've talked about so much in 2 hours. My head is exploding. All the new tips and tricks and things I want to explore. So thank you everyone for joining us today and spending 2 hours in the evening with us and learning all Canva. If at any point you have a question that it comes to your mind, in our Facebook group, just tag Claire in there, just ask her, and I'm sure that she'll be back. She's super responsive there. So absolutely, just if there's anything that comes, I know that I'm one of those people that when there is a time for questions, I'm like, nothing. On my way home from a conference, 2 hours later, I'm like, yeah,
all the questions. I've actually got, if I can share my screen again one last time, I've actually got a let me go. I've got a resources page here.
Yay!
So there's just a little video from me, and then there's a few blog posts around building brand toolkits, being consistent, a bit about how Canva can save you time, little bits like that. You can also sign up to my newsletter where you'll get tips, and then there's a little course as well. So just if you wanted more information, you can jump onto there, and then any questions, like Lenka said, feel free to give me a shout within the group, and I'm more than happy to answer anything. Because like you say, you remember everything at the end. You're like, oh, I should have asked that. And if there is any videos of that people want to show how I do stuff, I'm more than happy to record those, seeing as we couldn't do the full live demo.